Hello, podcast land, and welcome back to another episode. So today I am solo on the podcast, not through choice. Rowan has got some very important exams in his masters at the moment, so he is locked in his room revising. So I do miss him. So if he's listening, he probably will. He's my only fan. If he's listening, good luck with the revision, man. And looking forward to getting you back on the podcast. Okay, but today's podcast is quite a topical podcast because most people we're coming out the other side of the Christmas period. And I keep saying that, like, how long can we hang on to the Christmas period? But nonetheless, the title of this podcast is How Fat is Too Fat? And disclaimer, before any kind of anti-diet people come at me or body image people come at me kind of saying, you shouldn't be calling people fat. You shouldn't be calling people thin. It's 2022. Who are you? Cancel culture, ban me. Other than that, let's get that out of the way. And if that offends you, me saying fat or saying someone's too fat or saying someone's not fat enough, like, don't listen to the podcast. I won't miss you. But in terms of physique development and natural physique development, that is, how fat is too fat for a gaining phase or a push-up phase or any phase for that matter? And with most things, it will always be the case of it depends. And that's a cop-out answer, but it is. But there are a few factors that we could think about and kind of play into our decision making when we're in a push-up phase, because inevitably, as a natural guy or girl, you will gain some body fat, adipose tissue when you have a prolonged calorie surplus, especially if you're trying to push body weight to new levels. And that's realistically where the magic happens as a natural athlete. If we kind of maintain the same body weight year round, we're not necessarily giving ourselves that optimal environment to put on as much muscle as we can, because some will be body fat, some will be muscle. But if we give ourselves a prolonged period of more than enough calories, we are kind of capitalizing on that abundance of nutrition, nutrients, and energy to, one, be able to drive up performance and subsequently push body weight to new levels. So like I said, like, there's always going to be some form of body fat gain during this period. And that's something first that you're going to have to get your head around. Okay. Like, it's not a nice experience. Like, trust me, coming from stage this year, and fighting my own kind of body dysmorphia demons, it's hard and it's not a fun time. Like, if you do get emotionally attached to being in a certain body fat or a certain level of condition. And that's one of the things that we need to take into consideration. So how fat is too fat by your standards? And sometimes we need to let those standards go a little bit, not as in our standards of our training, of our nutrition, but standards of where we are comfortable being. Because like I said, sometimes it won't be comfortable. It won't be comfortable getting 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 kilograms above where you were happy. But that's where the muscle will grow at the end of the day. So what we need to think about is, in the kind of decision making around being too fat, is I'm in no position to call someone too fat. Okay. This is in terms of them making the most kind of progress in terms of their physique development. And in terms of that, is the level of body fat that you are getting to or pushing up to making those future goals unrealistic? So those future goals could be a stage. Those future goals could be a photo shoot. Those future goals could be a holiday. Those future goals could be just a significantly more muscled version of you at the moment. And is you getting super heavy, so far away from what you'd need to be for that end goal, making it unrealistic? So for example, let's talk about my prep. So I was sitting 115 kilograms easy, closer towards 118 kilograms. I didn't realize that I needed to get so low during prep to be shredded. So potentially I'd push body fat too far. I managed to get into condition for that show, but I had to push pretty hard. So you need to weigh up, are you going to be able to take it all off? So if you're doing a bodybuilding show, are you going to be able to diet for long enough and adhere for long enough and almost have the balls or whatever else you need to diet for that long on low food, on high expenditure? If you're not, you might be better off not pushing it as much. But again, we come back to the fact that if you actually want to kind of put on a decent amount of muscle, you probably do need to push it. So at some point, you need to make a decision around that. And likewise, if you're doing a photo shoot, is you getting 30 kilograms away from that photo shoot, like prediction can stay, that photo shoot predicted weight going to be beneficial for you? Because otherwise you're going to be dropping into like a 25 week dieting phase for just a photo shoot. And then that's going to have its own repercussions. So that would be my first point of call in terms of how far away from your goal, like what is the end goal? If the goal is stage, how far are you away from that predicted stage weight or photo shoot weight or holiday weight or look? Because that will play a massive part in whether you are quote unquote too fat or that you're pushing it too much in your off season. But again, like you could always say, like you can never push it too much in your off season, but that is on the premise that you have what it takes to take it all off at the end. And my second point would be like, is getting heavier or is quote unquote getting too fat benefiting your performance? Because realistically, and I say this in a lot of the podcasts, is your weight gain or is your scale weight going up benefiting your performance? Because performance should be something that drives your off season, and it should be, well, realistically, it should be something that drives everything that you do around physique development. If we're performing terribly in a dieting phase, there is a greater chance of us losing muscle. If we are not performing well during our gaining phase, what are we actually doing? Like the amount of food that we're on, the whole reason that we're training hard is to improve our performance. Apply that progressive overload, make sure that the stimulus over time is getting heavier or our volume capabilities are increasing so that we can grow muscle. So is you getting really, really, really fat benefiting your performance? And this is where kind of we can link it to rapid rates of gain might kind of lend themselves more towards or might actually result in more fat gain, and that you won't actually be able to see huge jumps up in performance that quickly. So that is where a slower approach, potentially over time, might lead to you actually matching your weight gain or your level of body fat with your performance. Because we can also say that like a heavier version of you will potentially, or will probably more than likely be the strongest version of you. Mass means mass. And a lot of the time, we'll know where we operate and perform the best. For me, that's around kind of like 100 kilograms. But I must say that I was my strongest when I was my heaviest. I was able to pull way more weight. I felt more comfortable under those heavier loads. And did that cross over into me performing better? Yes. Did that cross over to me into having more muscle mass? Potentially. I don't know for a fact, but there's only something you can kind of experiment with. And as long as that weight gain on the scale and you getting to new levels of body weight alongside that body fat is bringing about the results in performance that we want as a kind of physique athlete, then I would say that that gives you the green light. Not kind of like Squid Game, but that does kind of give you some sort of leeway to it being a beneficial thing. And then you would know if performance starts to stall, for example, that you might be getting quote unquote too fat, and that getting any fatter might not actually benefit your performance and then subsequently benefit your off season as such. So we've covered two things. Like obviously the first one being that can you take it all off when the time comes, relevant to your goal, photo shoot, stage, holiday? Is your increase in scale weight and increases in body fat actually benefiting your performance? And then lastly, well, probably not lastly, is all of your feedback and all of your biofeedback in the green? And this is something that I think sometimes gets overlooked, and that's very much something that happens in the kind of dirty bulk culture. Those who just slam excessive amounts of calories for excessive amounts of time probably grow a lot of muscle, but during that period, their biofeedback, so their digestion, their recovery, and all of their other things, just general fitness goes absolutely in the bin. And arguably, I know I say that you'll get uncomfortable during the gaining phase, and you probably will, just like you'll get probably uncomfortable in the dieting phase, but we would like to see you somewhat healthy during a gaining phase, arguably probably your healthiest. Of course, there's a spectrum to this, that when you really are pushing things and trying to gain weight, when your body really doesn't want to, you're probably going to go into the red with your biofeedback. But what I have found from coaching clients and pushing them hard in terms of gaining weight and subsequently gaining body fat is that each individual will have a different set point for body fat, that when they go over it, things start to go into the red. So this could be completely different person to person, but what you will see is over a certain point, digestion will start to get worse, that energy will start to get worse, performance, like I said, will start to get worse, and other things like fitness, sleep will start to get worse. And of course, you can always try and work around these things by lifestyle habit changes, some forms of supplementation, training interventions like adding in cardiovascular work, and interventions around kind of potentially lowering food for a little period of time, such as mini cuts or just a volume of food week or so. But what you'll find is that if this biofeedback gets into the red, things will start to kind of spiral pretty quickly, and you can't maintain that for a long period of time. And what you'll often find is things that spur mini cuts are biofeedback being in the red. And what you kind of want to do is manage that so you never really get in the red. And of course, it's inevitable that you will get in the red at some point, because you can't just keep progressing weight forever. But this is where you need to really optimize and be efficient in what you're doing, your micronutrition, your recovery, because if you're getting stronger and the strongest you've ever been, you're going to have to recover as hard as you've ever done. And this is obviously sometimes hard around jobs, life, family. So there's a lot of things that play into it. And if your level of body fat isn't putting you in a healthy position over a long period of time, it's probably not a good thing. But again, you've got to weigh it up against the amount of muscle that you want to grow. Because I know there's some huge advocates of just getting in a surplus and just eating. And they are often the biggest guys. The person who comes to mind is Keefe. Like, he is a mutant. But I would say most people aren't like him. So if you're listening, mate, I'm bigging you up here, but I'm also putting you on a pedestal because I would class you as kind of a genetic freak. And not many people can replicate you as much as we'd want to. So that's point number 3. And now the last point, and this links heavily to kind of the first point, was, can the client, when the time comes, can the client take it all off? Can they get the fat off as easily as they put it on? For some clients, dieting is easy. For others, it is a little bit tougher. So this is where, from a coaching standpoint, you need to think, well, I need to think, or any coaches need to think, if I'm pushing this client this hard, will they be able to push this hard to take it off? Because like I said, if you're 30 kilograms away from your predicted weight that you need to be for this outcome, are you going to be able to do it? If you're not, let's not push as hard. But if you can go to those extremities of gaining weight, because you know you can go to those extremities of losing weight or body fat as well. And this will be completely client dependent, and it depends on their psychology really, and their level of where they're at. Like, general population clients probably don't want to take it all off. You don't need to be like bodybuilding stage lean just to walk around TK Maxx and get some bargains, or walk around Sainsbury's with no fat on your feet. Like, no one, you don't need that. But if you're a bodybuilding client, you have to be prepared to take off what you put on. So yeah, I just thought I'd give my 2 cents on that. This is going to be a little quick podcast today, a little quick one, because I find it quite hard actually talking to myself all the time, looking at myself, talking to myself. But nonetheless, I thought it was a topic that needs to be talked about a little bit more, because it's all well and good kind of gaining weight, getting strong as fuck. But if you cannot, at the end of the day, bring it back down towards the goal that you're trying to achieve in the long run, you're putting yourself in a bad position. But other than that, thank you for listening. If you are interested in online coaching, you can follow the links in the description below and the show notes. If you are new around here, give us a review. You can review on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts. And if you're on YouTube, you can give us a like. That really does help. And subscribe if you're new. Most of the time, it's the same people watching this, so I appreciate you. But if you have any ideas that you want us to talk about, Rowan will be back on soon. I've also got my very intelligent friend, Harry Pope, looking to come on and talk all things RPE very soon. But other than that, I hope you have a great Wednesday, and I will see you, or speak to you, or listen to you, all of those in the next podcast.